people thinking there's, just because my legs don't work, it doesn't mean my brain doesn't work, and once I get over that hurdle, I'm all right. And luckily Joe, who is a really, really good friend of mine, and my best friend really, and he accommodates me physically, and he said to me about a year ago to come and do a couple of days with me, so I did, and I really, really enjoyed it, and he said to me, come on tour with me, so I did, and I'm here now doing it, and I love it.
Now, for those of you who don't remember Wayne Dobson, he was the guy that used to grab two men from the audience, he'd then take them on stage, they wouldn't say a word, and he'd have them have a conversation, but one would sound like Barry White, and the other one would sound like, the most feminine lady possible. Where did you get the idea for that? Because I'd never seen it before, and it was so original at the time.
I would say I saw a very old vent act years and years ago called Dennis Spicer on a video years ago, and he did something with people where he gave them voices, and they opened the mouth when he squeezed their wrists on cue, and I thought, well, that's a great idea, and I think it was in the subconscious for years. And I was working the clubs in the northeast, and I got this guy on stage one night, and I said to him, he just was off the cuff, I said, is that your cigarette? And he went, yeah. And it got a big laugh, and I kept the high voice for a good 4 or 5 months, and then developed the low, deep voice, and it became synonymous with me, really, and it just grew from there. But I've made the routine longer and shorter, and I think I've got it just about right by now, so I've been doing it a long time.
Well, you did it with Joe Pasquale as the warm-up, and it really whipped people up into a frenzy into the first half. And I don't necessarily, with any of these shows I go to see, go by my opinion, but the reaction of the audience while they're having the drinks in the interval, and they just loved it, and you could tell the genuine laughter. And it really is pretty simple what you're doing, and it's more or less the same gag after the same gag, isn't it? Yeah. He does the low voice, and the other guy does the high voice, yes. But it's just so funny the way you do it. And there must be an immense amount of concentration to remember whose voice is whose, and yours in the middle. Yeah,
I suppose there is quite a lot of concentration. But I've been doing it for so long, and I'm not the world's greatest ventriloquist, can't say that. And I just pick words that don't allow me to move my lips, although I do occasionally. But it's just a very funny scenario when it's something I've never ever seen. I did it on the Royal Variety Show with Frank Bruno and Harry Carpenter, and that was what made it famous, really, So
we're going to talk all about your career on this program, but first I want to talk to you about multiple sclerosis, because this is the reason I'm making the program, because I think you're such an incredible character that you have not let this illness stop you in any way whatsoever, and I think that's something to be very proud of. First of all, for those who don't know, what is MS, multiple sclerosis?
It basically affects the central nervous system, and I didn't know a lot about it. I mean, all I knew was that people were I just saw the posters about people being in wheelchairs and things. But although I am in a wheelchair, I don't work in a wheelchair when I work. I try not to, because sometimes people can look at the wheelchair and not the person that's in it. Affects people very differently. I would say the way it affects me, my legs are really weak, and one hand is quite weak, and I mispronounce the odd word, or worm, as I say as a gag, and that's the way it affects me. And if I get tired, or the heat affects me quite badly. But about 7 or 8 years ago, I was in the Caribbean, and I met a professor there of diet immunology, and he put me in touch with herbalists, and he spoke to me about going on a dairy and gluten-free diet, and I've been on that for 8 years now, and I've got to say, it does make me feel, well, it did, within 2 weeks, it made me feel so much better. I couldn't believe it. In fact, I don't know how much better I feel now, because I haven't taken this gluten or dairy for 8 years, so I don't know how I'd be if I did take it now, you know. But I'm totally drug-free as such, you know. And I know there's all this talk about cannabis and being good for MS, and I have cannabis and curry. It's called a hot pot, and you know. And I actually rang the cannabis helpline the other day. It said press hash. So, but no, I don't take. I think it's more for people with pain. I get no pain, although I am with pain at times, but I get no pain. Yeah.
How long ago did you find out that you had this illness?
It was about, I was 31, I'm 45 now. I should have been 47, but my dad got 2 years. And now I'm 45. So probably 14 years ago, I was in Holland and I got my right leg went totally numb, and I got in the bath, I remember, and I couldn't feel my leg. So I rang my doctor, and he sent me to a neurologist, and I had a scan. But I think he must have put two and two together, because my past history was like dizziness and vertigo and stuff like that. So they said to me at that time, you know, there's a good possibility here that there's MS, but you might not have another attack. But to be honest, every time I got a twinge, I thought, MS, you know, MS, here we go, you know. And I was doing my series at the time, so nobody knew about it. But then about 5 years later, it was a really hot summer, and I was pulling the cover off the birdcage. I had two large macaws, and as I pulled off, it snagged, and my right leg just gave away underneath me, and I tore the ligaments in the leg and sprained the ankle, and I couldn't weight bear on that leg properly, and I was really not looking brilliant, you know, and the rumours were going around about me, you know, being in the showbiz world, you know, about being a drug addict, you know, and I was on cocaine, you know, and I went to my doctor, and, you know, we'd had a confirmed diagnosis by then as well, and he said, it's not your fault, don't be guilty about it. So I sort of came out about it, really, and told the world, you know, that I was suffering with MS, and at that time it was hard for me mentally, because the work was dropping off, because I don't think people wanted to know a disabled performer. I knew I could still do the job, but it was hard for me because I felt like I was trying to prove something every time. Like, if I had a bad show, like we can all have, you know, every act can have a duff show, I guarantee what they blame. You know, they blame my disability, and that really used to wind me up. And in the end, I just sort of like stepped back a bit and just decided that if they want me, they want me. If they don't, they don't. So I left it alone for a while, and you know, sorted out my domestic problems, because I was going through divorce, and then I decided to get myself a wheelchair, because I was getting like a bit of a liability walking around and tripping over. So I decided to get one, and it made life a lot easier for me, you know. And it's great. I mean, MS is a very strange disease, I suppose. I mean, it can get you frustrated, although MS doesn't get me that, the actual disease doesn't get me down too much, because I don't analyse it too much, because I don't look too far in the future, because I'd rather live in the bliss of ignorance than the hell of reality at times, you know. And what does aggravate me, I suppose, is, you know, if I try one job, I might create six, you know. I mean, like a while ago, there was a knife on the side shelf, and I went to get the knife, but as I got the knife, I dropped the knife and on the floor. Now, to get the knife, but I'd also knocked off the tabletop about half a dozen pieces of paper that I was working with. Now, to get these pieces of paper, I had to bend down out of the chair to get them. So I got them, but there was one piece that was just a bit too far away for me to get. So to get it, I had to put the brakes on the chair, get out of my chair, get on the floor and get the piece of paper. But to get back in the chair, I couldn't do it without holding, because I was holding the paper. So I held the paper in my mouth, and I got back in the chair, took the paper out of my mouth, and realised I cut my lip on the paper. I've created, just from getting a knife. So I went to the bathroom to get some TCP for my lip. Right, I put the TCP on the lip, but it stung like hell. So I dropped the bottle, and as I dropped the bottle, it smashed on the floor. Right, and as it smashed on the floor, I got the bottle and bits, and I cut my finger, So I cut my finger and put a plaster around my finger, and came back in the kitchen and took the knife and put it on the top of the table. Yeah, so that really gets me down. It took me 25 minutes to get that knife sorted out. I ended with the cut lip, but you got to laugh about it, ain't you?
How easy was the decision for you to actually get a wheelchair and moreover be seen in public in a wheelchair? How did you cope mentally with that?
I think the worst thing I find about being in a wheelchair, for me, I suppose, is when I'm talking to people. It's great, like yourself now, we're sitting on the same level. But if I go to somewhere and they're standing, I feel like I'm just looking up to them all the time, and I feel quite inferior at that point. But I want them on my level all the time. That's why when I work, I always work on a high bar stool, so that I feel slightly elevated above the audience. I feel in control more. With MS, because it's a very slow situation, it was with me, you don't get out of bed one day and your legs don't work, it's just one of those things that creeps up on you like tight shorts, really. And and basically I bought this place about 3 years ago, and I thought to myself, I need wider door frames here, and we'll take that door off there, and we'll do that, and we'll do that. And so you adjust accordingly and turn your minuses into pluses, if you like. And I have this philosophy in life always, that I only do what I'm good at. In that way, I look like I'm good at everything I do, And I think everybody should be the same, really.
What made you want to be a comedian?
It was a necessity, really, because I was working in the Northeast in the working men's clubs up there, and they're very tough. I went to the Shoreline Club in South Shields, and it was a late spot. I rapped on the door with the mic stand, and this slide of the door went back, and it's sort of like a prison cell. He said to me, what do you do, I said, I do magic. He said, not tricks. They're going to hit tricks here, I said, I do ventriloquism as well. He said, not puppets. He said, puppets and tricks. Sounds crap to me. He said, anyway, have a good show. And he put me on. I was fearless then. He said, we got to get you coming on now. He said, puppets and tricks. Sounds crap to me. He said, but he must be good because he's VAT registered. And so I went on. It did 25 minutes. I swear I never got a laugh or applause or anything. I went off to the sound of my own footsteps, or today would be the sound of my own wheels. So, and I came off and I thought, I'm never going to get paid. And I was packing my stuff up in the dressing room, and he came in and he said to me, very good, that son, there's your money there, He said, I said, good. I said, they never laughed and they never clapped or anything. He said, no, but they were listening, and that's good enough for me. So comedy really sort of crept in from then, really, I suppose. I mean, it was always there, but it became more and more. I thought, I've got to be funny now.
What are the kind of restrictions on you doing magic now with the disability? I mean, are you able to do card tricks and things like that?
Yeah, I do quite a lot of things, and I've adapted certain things to accommodate my physical problems, you just, like I say, you turn your minuses to pluses, and you just, although I can't do something with one hand, I might be able to do it with the other even better, so, and so I actually think, I would say, it's easy to say this now, but since I sit on a bar stool, my act has become better than it ever used to, because I feel it's like more intimate, and the people are, you're a bit more vulnerable to them, and they like you more. I think when I was like a stand-up walking around all smart and doing the lines and the tricks, I was very smart, and I think people probably thought I was a bit cocky. I don't know, Maybe not. I don't know. Good.
How fearful were you the first time you did the show, coming back with Joe on stage with the chair and him having to push you on?
Yeah, very nervous, really, I suppose, because I wasn't sure how people would take me. But once I did the first 5 minutes, I thought, hey, this is fantastic. This is like medicine to me, better than anything I've ever had, and it's all I know. That's all I can do. People have said, well, why don't you do something else? I don't know anything. That's all I do,
And I suppose for any performer, the laugh and the roar of the crowd can just do you the world of good.
Well, yeah, it's adrenaline, isn't it? And that's what makes you feel good, I suppose.
As for the routine, I mean, how did you remember it all? Because you have so many lines, and that's the thing I love about you guys. You old variety stock. You've got so many lines in your head for everything. I mean, we've done it already on this program. I mention a word and you've got a line.
Yeah.
How many years does it take you to remember all that? Do you write them all down? What's your process to remembering them all?
I don't write lines down. I just, I suppose I collate them over the years, and you just store them in your head, I suppose, and somebody says something and it triggers it off, I mean, I suppose 20 years ago I was thinking, oh, that's a good line, I'll save that line, and you were desperate to get a situation, or you would try and engineer something so you could do that line. But I think, my mum always said to me when she saw David Nixon, be like him, because if there's not a funny situation to have, don't have it. Then it doesn't look like you're trying to be funny. Only be funny if you know you can be.
The thing I love about the confidence of somebody like yourself is that you can turn to the audience and use them as your crux.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need them. If they're not funny back, it doesn't matter. You've got a line normally. I mean, the great thing you did was the occupations. You'd virtually, for everybody you picked out, whether it was their name or their occupation, you'd got a clever line, which obviously comes with years of learning them and picking them up.
Yeah.
Most performers today don't seem to have the confidence to play with their audience, and I use that really as a chosen phrase. You're kind of toying with them, aren't you? You're using them as comic fodder, but they're part of it. They don't mind.
No, they don't mind. I always say get laughs with them and not at them, and in that way they feel like part of what you're doing. The audience for me are my tools, and I've got to. You can book an act, but you can't book an audience. So if the audience are there and they want to have a good time, I'll join them.
Now you're doing a huge tour with Joe. I think it's something like 50 shows, isn't it?
53 dates. Yeah. 53.
The performing, I know from doing many interviews like this, is the easy bit. It's the travelling, and particularly in your situation, how difficult is it? You're down south, you're doing shows up in the north. How difficult is it travelling hours in a car?
Yeah, it is quite tiring. I always try and get to the venue if we've got a long journey the night before, or the town, somewhere the night before, so I can get there fresh the following day. I've always travelled, all my life, so I suppose it's all part of the game for me,
A lot of people have said to me when they have an illness like this that you have to learn to let people help you and not be on the defensive all the time.
Yes.
Did you find it easy coming to terms with that?
No, not at all. If people want to help me, I love it really. But at the same time, I will not burden them to, put pressure on to feel as though they have to help me. If they want to, that's fantastic.
It must be difficult, as I say, going from that thing of being very independent, as most performers are. You're touring up and down the country to needing help, but you've never struggled with that.
Again, I don't like being a burden on people, but if they want to take me on board, and it's like Joe is a good friend, but at the same time, it's not one-sided. I feel like I give him as much as he gives me, and that's good. It makes me feel better, and that's why I enjoy working with him, because, at the end of the day, I'm there as a warm-up for him, and I'm warming the crowd up good for him, and I'm doing my job. Well,
all joking aside, literally, I mean, if you weren't any good, he wouldn't have you on, because he ain't going to have a good second half if you're not funny.
No, that's right. And I always believe, that the better the first half, the better the second half will be, because the audience are in a good mood.
We talked about your TV career, which is where most people will have seen you in the 80s and early 90s and stuff, where you were huge.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the TV industry generally turn their back on you, and most people in your situation, that once you become of a certain age, regardless of whether you have a disability, they're kind of not interested? Because looking at telly now, it's all about the reality TVs and the being a pop star and things like that. It's no longer about variety and entertainment.
I think variety really suffered a bit, because I think we're old hat, unfortunately. Like the alternative comedians of yesterday are no longer alternative. They are mainstream. They are what it's all about. And but I think, I don't think people should disregard us, because I think we do have something to offer.
So then our final moments here with Wayne Dobson. We're at his house down south, and a Midlands boy, born and bred, really, aren't you?
Yeah, Leicester I am from, yes. Right up until I was about 28, 26, and came down south for work, really. But I still get up to the Midlands to see my parents, yeah.
What do they think of you?
Yeah, they're very proud, obviously, about what I've done and what I accomplished and everything. So, yeah, they really are, with me all the way. I think they were glad that I found something that I really liked doing, because, there was a point when I was about 14, I think they thought, gosh, what's he going to do?
Could have gone either way.
Yeah, I think so. I ended up working in a sock factory for about 4 years. I was doing sample dyeing for a while, and they found out I was colourblind, so I had to give that up. Then I was knitting socks, not with the needles on the machines, but I always knew that, it was not my vacation in life.
Where do you think you gained your personality to be so good at communicating with people and to stand on stage and have the confidence?
I don't know. I think my mum is very influential in the area, because she's got a great sense of humour as well. So I suppose, but I've always been a really good listener, and I think that's very important. If you listen to what people say, it's like being a sponge, and I took everything in. The best stories are true, and I mean, recently I went to Las Vegas, not America, it was a chip shop in Slough. No, I went to Las Vegas to surprise Joe, because he was there on holiday. So myself and Marianne went out to Vegas, and we were on the plane flying out there, and we were in economy class because I can't afford to travel in there or something like this. And the stewardess came up to me and said, Mr. Dobson, my boss would like you to go up to first class and join him. And I said, who's your boss? And they said, Richard. And I went, Richard? They said, Branson. And I said, really? And I said, yeah, come up to the... And because he'd seen me do a show years ago, and I went first class all the way to America, and he organised it for when I came back as well, and there he was, the man, So, and then we got to Vegas, and we surprised Joe, and he couldn't believe we were there, and I got there before him. But we went across to the hotel where he was staying one day, and it was the Mirage Hotel on the strip there, and I decided I wanted to go to the loo, and Joe said, I'll take you, and so anyway, they hadn't got a disabled toilet down, so he said, be quicker going to my room, I said, okay, if you don't mind. So we went up the lift 15 floors to his room, and we got to his room, and the door was already open because there was a maid in there servicing the room, and she was a Mexican, Mrs. Gonzalez or something, I could tell she was Mexican because her moustache was 4 inches below her chin, and it's funny, when you meet somebody with a broken English accent, you all speak back in broken English, she's going, well, what do you want? And I said, and Joe goes, we want to use the toilet, and she said, oh, okay, there you go. So Joe and I went in the toilet. Now, she must have thought it was very strange that two guys going into the toilet. Now, the routine is, right, Joe will lift me off the wheelchair, right, drop down my jeans and spin me around and sit me on the toilet, And he always says to me, I'll take your trousers down, I'll lift you up, I ain't going to touch something. No. So, all right, that's fine. So, anyway, when he lifted me up to get on the toilet, he lifted me up there, and there's a big plate glass mirror at the side of us, and we both looked in the mirror and we got our cheeks pressed together and we started laughing. And when you laugh, you lose your strength, and he spun me around. As he spun me around, he dropped me more or less on the toilet seat, right? And the toilet seat came off its hinges, and it was skimmed a bit over, but I'd also cracked the cistern at the back. A little bit had come out and there was water pouring out the cistern, right? And so anyway, he lifted me off the toilet, and as he lifted me off, the toilet seat was stuck to my backside, and that dropped on the floor, and there was water going all over the floor. And we came out of the toilet, and Joe went, we broke, he's speaking broken English, we broke the toilet, He said, we needed to make the cistern stop filling up, because there was water flowing out. And he said, I need to get a hammer, and she's got a hammer sandwich, and all that sort of thing, And anyway, he convinced us of her maintenance, so she found maintenance. And we went out anyway, we left out, and as we left out, we went down the corridor, looked back, and we realised it wasn't our room.
Fantastic.
So it was really funny.
What a great story. And I think we have to say great thank you to Joe Pasquale for giving you the chance, really, because it's brave of him. People could have reacted negatively. He didn't know the reaction, did he? So what a good guy to give you this chance. Yeah, no, it's great. And it's great working with him, because at the end of the day, it's going to be dark. And no, at the end of the day, it's great because they're full houses, everywhere's full, and they all come out for a laugh. So I've got a comedy audience there, and Joe knows my stuff, and he'll, work me accordingly, and it's great, and he just lets me get on with it, And you're both comedy legends for very different reasons. Your act, as I say, with the two guys is hysterical. And Joe, well, need we say more? His voice and everything. There's nothing more to say about Joe Pasquale, really, is there? I always say if they like you, they'll like whatever you do afterwards. And basically that is Joe. Whatever he does, they love.